Thank you all for joining us today. Hello and welcome to the Laughter and Resilience Exhibit Talk with artist Stephen Yazzie. My name is Brandy Crocker and I'm the manager of special events and artist engagement here at the Auditorium Museum. While most of my job is planning the annual Indian Market and Festival that we have here every June, which the virtual edition of Indian Market and Festival is coming up very soon, June 14th to June 28th. I also get to work with other amazing artists like Stephen Yazzie. So Stephen is one of our fellows for our fellowship exhibit this year that's coming up in November as well. And Stephen is a multidisciplinary artist working in video, painting, and installation. He is a member of the Navajo Nation and a veteran of the Gulf War, serving honorably with the U.S. Marine Corps. He received a BFA in Intermedia at Arizona State University and was named the 2014 Outstanding Graduate of ASU's Herberger Institute for Design and the Arts. He also studied at the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture in Maine. Stephen is the co-founder of Digital Preserve LLC, a video production company collaborating with artists, filmmakers, and interdisciplinary creatives to produce meaningful content and stories that highlight Indigenous issues. Stephen's work has been exhibited nationally and internationally at such venues as the Museum of Modern Art, Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian, National Gallery of Canada, Art Gallery of Ontario, the Heard Museum, the IAIA Museum of Contemporary Native Art, and the Wheelwright Museum, which is the exhibit Laughter and Resilience from the Wheelwright that we're talking about today. So Stephen, I'll let you start off with talking more about yourself.
Got to unmute here. All right. Hey, good to see everybody. Stephen Yazzie Shiye, Belagana Nishli, Taji Basistin, Belagana Dashiche, Ado Tsinajini Dashinali. I am of the white man clan born for the Turkey clan. And the Turkey clan is from my grandmother's side or my father's side, who's Laguna Pueblo, and then also the white man clan from my mother's side, and then my father's side is at Tsinajini, which is the Blackstreet. I think it's the Blackstreet Wood people. But I just want to say hello and thank you for having me. It's good to be here. I know we're all here virtually and getting used to these crazy Zoom experiences. So hopefully I can present some things that will, just bring you into the kind of the work that I've done and tell you who I am a little bit. To give you kind of I'll try to give you the big overview, the big wide, the big brushstroke, so to speak. I started painting after my service in the Marine Corps, sometime in my mid-20s in the mid-90s. And, I tried school after the service and it didn't really fit for me at the time. And then I fell into working with a group of artists and it seemed like this was the way I was going to go. And then I started working with galleries and fell into this career painting primarily for, I think, at least 15 years. So I've been painting for quite a long time. And I think what we have in the exhibition is one of the paintings, one of two that were originally part of the initial exhibition. And I'll talk about those in a second, but yeah, painting has been a big part of my life, a big part of my, not only the way I've been able to, heal myself in certain ways, but a way to, find, my relationship and understanding of the world, especially early on. In painting in particular, that's a place where I believe, many artists start out, working on issues surrounding identity and, those personal experiences are really relevant in early painting. So I began as a narrative painter and moved into abstraction and then began working into conceptual projects and collaborations with folks and other artists. As I moved into painting, or as I began to expand my practice into early 2000s, mid 2000s, or 2005, 2006. I started working more conceptually, and one work in particular is called drawing. It's a drawing and driving series, and I should have it all up. I'm going to pull it up as I talk about it. That might be helpful. Because you guys don't want to just look at me. You got to see the work. Okay, where am I at here? Okay. So, you know, so I'm just bringing you to my website, and I guess just to give a, I'm involved with so many things. It's hard to get a hold of what I want to focus on. I know we're limited with time. The painting work, I'll go back a little bit and just talk a little bit about the figurative work. And there's a lot of work on my website. It's yazziestudio.com or stevenyazzie.com. And you can find, a lot of these. You can see a lot of this kind of work. It kind of references the representational and figurative work. This painting here, Dream Warrior, was part of the original exhibition of the Laughter and Resilience show that started at the Wheelwright. This particular painting I want to mention was funny because it is a kind of a twist on identity, a play on that. A friend of mine who's a painter. I did a portrait of him. This is about 7 feet by 4.5. And he's, but we always joked that he was born in Arizona, and I wasn't. I was born in California, and then moved to Arizona back to the reservation when I was little. But he always claimed, well, I'm more native than you are. I'm from, I was born here. And so we would joke around a lot about that. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. Let me paint you as a Navajo. And so, I borrowed some friends, and family clothes, and dressed up my buddy as a Navajo. And we had to, I wanted to pose him as a very stoic character. And it also it plays into this, there's a lot of things that were happening with us as friends, and just the kind of the playful nature of this. But there's this, the title of it being Dream Warrior, and there's this often this romanticized or idealized, image of the Native American. And so this is really kind of a play on that as well. So I thought that was kind of fun. A lot of this other work, came up around that time. I won't go into too much detail with some of these because, well, this one I will. My grandfather was a Navajo code talker in World War II. And so I did do I started doing paintings on canvas and on material that were like the camouflage material, and some of the vinyl material became a different kind of way to push the paint around. But I wanted to do a portrait of him, a little larger than life. And so this is kind of a good look at some of the representational work that I've done. The drawing and driving work, which I started talking about, excuse me, I have a little burpee over here. This is some recent work I did with the last year, 2 years ago, with the IAI school, some students. And drawing and driving is essentially just that. It's a, and I'll play, does this play on, can you see it? I'll cut the audio a little bit, but can you all see?
Yeah,
thumbs up movement?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we can.
You got to get the idea of it. But essentially it's so I created a couple of these vehicles over the years. A lot of them are modified. This one was a modified recumbent bike. And it really is about the process of, experiencing the land and drawing, and whatever that, everybody interprets it a little bit differently. Some people, for me, it was about trying to capture the essence of the place I was walking or traveling through or driving through, and the impossibility of it, and how I imagined it would look. And I'm gonna close this out. It could be pretty crazy to look at. and so it's both like this performative, piece, and but also it was the idea around how we often experience the world through a car. And I grew up, I spent a lot of time in Phoenix, and it's very car-based culture. And, it's even the design of the city is, it's a grid system, and everything is built for a lot of the public transportation, or even the design of the city is made for vehicles. So this was a project, though, that was really great in that I got to collaborate with a lot of different artists and just let them draw and drive and experience this kind of crazy, fun act of making art. And it was during this time too that I really started to document my work with video and photographs. I had not really used video before. So this is early video work too. And I'm just showing you like little excerpts of this. You can kind of see. But this is a pretty important period of my work, in that it really not only pushed me out or brought me outside of the studio to start thinking about work, but also it helped me engage with other community members and build some relationships that have been long lasting. All right, so we'll just wrap that one up. There's some drawing and driving for you, but I think we might have that in a future show, maybe that the other exhibition. But for the Laughter and Resilience, we'll come back to that a little bit. The coyote in particular is this is the painting called New Arrival, and it's going to be in the exhibition. And I guess before I talk about this particular painting, and to give you a context of the entire series, maybe I should touch on just that the coyote figure for Navajo is really kind of represents this transgressive figure, this figure that he's in our stories, in our the figure he kind of teaches us about who we are. He pushes areas of morality and is always getting into trouble, and is really a reflection of who we are, I think, as people. And so there's a lot of taboo too and things around the coyote that if you see as a Navajo, when you see a coyote, you're supposed to go back, stop where you're going and either take another path or turn around. But a friend of mine would what his family would do is if they were driving down the road and a coyote passed in front of them, normally you're supposed to stop and go back or not take the trip. They would always pull off to the side of the road and wait for another car to pass before they continued on their trip. So that was their workaround. But so the coyote in that sense is that's part of the narrative, or part of what hopefully informs the piece. The other one is that growing up I say growing up in Phoenix, but Arizona, and spending a lot of time in Phoenix, and in those urban centers, this coyote, this creature, is incredibly, adapts to human culture and civilization, and is like a resilient creature. It's just you're probably well aware of seeing them in the urban centers and on the kind of the periphery of human civilization. So I always think it's interesting that this character is just right alongside us and has existed alongside, human civilization for a long time. So the idea of putting them in the interior space, these spaces are very specific for me to these idealized spaces that we build for ourselves. The early iterations or early paintings in the series were taken directly from Dwell magazines, the interiors, and from architectural magazines. So they were intentionally like pulling these well-meaning and well-designed spaces that I was very interested in just aesthetically. And they also, at the same time, 2008, 2009, there was a big housing collapse. For some of you that may not know, that just, crushed the housing market in many cities. And in Phoenix and in the West in particular, this impacted us greatly. So a lot of these new contemporary modern homes were being, were being bought, and then people couldn't afford to live in them anymore. They lost all their value. So people often left their homes, left new construction. So there was a lot of these vacant new buildings and new houses that I'd noticed. And so some of the series, and I'll show you that. So, by the way, I've done I've rewritten this text, so I need to update it on the site. It's got some problems. So if you get to the website, don't read that. Well, you can, but there's a better version coming. So these are just other versions of that, but in particular, so there was a house that I remember, and this is, so this painting is called Modernity Sunset. And this, if you see outside the house, there's this for sale sign. So a lot of these houses, I remember passing by them and seeing these for sale signs, or they were half built and under construction. And these are some other versions of that. There's like a sense of, I always want these paintings to feel like you're just catching a moment of them, of the coyote in the space. And I always think it's interesting that, that they've replaced the human figure in some form. They're all the remnants of humanity are there, except for the humans themselves. This one right now, this one I have currently, so that might be a fun one to show again. So this is a look at that work. There is, this is I'll talk about this one a little bit. This is an installation that I built that again was referencing Phoenix and the urban center. And these are cut hubcaps into squares representing a grid, kind of the grid of the city. I built this waterbed, which I imagined was the where I might have been conceived by a biracial relationship. And so there's actually a projection, and it's more of an abstraction of light, because I abstracted there's abstracted projection of mixed race pornography on the bed itself, and but you don't really see the forms, you just see the light. So it feels like moving light, maybe the light of the city. In the headboard is plays out the census. This is a visualization that represents the indigenous populations in the Phoenix metro area. And I worked with a population modeler that worked for the state of Arizona. And we came up with an algorithm based off of my family's propensity or disposition, or just state of who we were in our, who we married, who's married non-native, who's married other tribal nations. And we figured out how long would it take to change our blood quantum, or our status as Native people. And so this model, I think, cycles through a 200-year period. And so the colored dots represent 100. The red represents red and magenta represent 100% Native bloodline. or registered tribal membership, and then over time it changes to the color of green, which represents the 25% or less of native blood. So it was just a kind of a step into a different approach in work, and that. So I've done some other kind of work around this, but I thought it was a really interesting experiment for me to work in. This piece here, I was part of, I helped establish this collective, this native arts collective that's pretty active with other members now, but called Post Commodity. And this piece here is one of the collaborative works that we did. And there's a lot of work that we did as a group, but this is an example of work that I did with a lot of different community members and then the collaborative. So this is a piece that was at the Arizona State University Ceramic Research building, and it was an annex to the art museum itself. And basically it's called Do You Remember When? And we were able to negotiate cutting out a hole in the floor of the museum and exposing the earth of the earth and the place, the land that this museum rests on. And in the center of this square, there's a speaker underground, that wireless speaker that plays the bird song of some of the Cocopah and the Chemehuevi, or the Cocopah. It was Cocopah and Autumn, a friend of mine who's a singer and then bird dancer and a dancer. So the collective, there was 4 of us at the time, and we were invited to come learn a song, and we all sang, learned this bird song, and we sang it, and it plays through the floor, and then the microphone is connected to an amplifier that is also leaning up against the back of this floor here, and there's a contact mic in the floor itself. And what it does is it not only there's the ambient sound of the song, the community song, but it plays through whenever people step into the gallery, it would vibrate, and the stone or the floor itself would also become a kind of a microphone, and it would this reverb and this feedback loop. It was very subtle, would just kind of permeate this space. So that was a really cool piece. And as I was getting ready to talk today, I'm like, oh, let me pull this one up. This one was fun to remember. Let's see what I have. I can go over here. So there's another. I started as I progressed with video. I started working in installation, more some video projection installations. And there's this piece called Black, White, Blue, Yellow, or BWBY, and it's the 4. It represents the 4 sacred mountains for Navajo, and the outlying mountains. There's 6 altogether, but there's 4 are mountains that I traveled to and hiked and experienced, and just to understand what these places were and what they mean as a kind of places of emergence for us Navajo, places of where there are deities and spirit and gods that have put them there, and we've emerged from these places, and there are a lot of different stories attached to each mountain, and each one also represents a different gender. And one of the I'll play a little bit of this piece, if that's okay. And I'm not sure if there's a song or sound, but so these initial ones were three channels, and as I would hike or experience a mountain, I'd come back and start to create work. They became kind of formalized in projections and installation projections. So this is this is this would be in a gallery space ideally, and then there would be three different projectors, and not always in this arrangement. Sometimes they would be on different walls or in a corner. I'll just kind of move a little bit to it. So a lot in this piece is a lot of these vignettes of the kind of the modern or contemporary society, these different everyday moments that might happen in science, or might happen in a yard, or might happen in a photography studio. But these golden or yellow stones appear, which are kind of significant of like a resource that we pull from the land, or a resource that we see as having some value. And they were all, none of it was taken from the location, but they were just rocks that were painted, that were just framed or rearranged in different environments. There's another one too. This one was just, and I'll kind of skim through this. This is my son when he was really young. I hiked a rock from the bottom of Cisnagini, which is the eastern boundary mountain, White Shell Mountain. And I hiked the rock. So this is a kind of a story or a video about me bringing the rock of the mountain, of its older self, to its younger self, essentially, because I brought it to the top of the mountain. So it was more of a, maybe a personalized ceremony or ritual, or just something that was something I felt like I needed to do. And then also kind of juxtaposing or against these other figures there's an old and a young figure that are both unearthing their own white rock or their own stone and having these different experiences. So that contrasting with the process of me hiking to the top of the mountain became, what was interesting for me. So that's some of the installation work. Currently I'm also working, as mentioned, Digital Preserve is a video production company that I run, and we do a lot of collaborative work with Native people, Indigenous people. And just to briefly show you some of, not the whole thing, but I've worked with cultural and arts institutions and organizations to kind of highlight issues or just to share stories. And one that I think has been really important for me lately, or that we've just wrapped up here in Colorado, is at the University of Denver, DU. And I've been working with Ramona Beltran here on a project called Our Stories, Our Medicine. And this is really a kind of an example of a really like a true interdisciplinary project where I'm helping to document a very specific research project for the university and for this team. And then in turn, they're allowing me to, let's push our, after the interviews and our conversations, can we do a portrait together? Can we do something in photography? And can we bring that participant into the kind of a creative collaboration with me? And so it's been really a touching and important part of this evolution in my process. And then also working with community, it's been really meaningful for me. So that work can always be, you can explore it there, but I know I don't want to get too off of the art of the 2D work or the exhibition work. But this is just another extension of who I am and the work that I do. And so how are we doing on time? Should I open it up for questions or?
I was just going to say, do we want to open it up for some questions? If you guys have questions for Stephen, you can, I think at this point we could probably you can unmute yourself and ask away if anybody has anything. Or you can type them in the chat. If you'd rather not do that, you can also type them in the chat and we can facilitate some questions that way too.
And again, thank you guys for hanging out and sitting with me as I stumble through the websites and images and that.
No, it was great. It was great to see the whole, not just the paintings, but to see the whole body, to see, the rest of what you do too. Cool. I do have a question. What has the pandemic, has COVID-19 affected your inspiration or your work, or how have you been affected the past year?
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's there's a piece that I'm working on that I didn't get to talk about yet, and that is almost directly related to COVID. And it's a hydroponics growing system. So we were, with the family being at home and us all working in close proximity, we had to move around our home and our space to, find something that was like, okay, how do we got to figure this out together. And then one thing, we started thinking about the food that we were growing in our garden and thinking about like other food systems, like hydroponics, or systems that could grow food. And also we thought, well, if we're going to be together, we should have something beautiful and green in here. Maybe we could put it in this corner. It could sit between us. And so it kind of inspired this move for me. And that was one, it wasn't just COVID, but it was also an interest in how we, food sovereignty, food sustainability, the seeds that I'm hoping to grow in this project are native seeds to this region of the country and the Sonoran, down through the Sonoran area, but it's amaranth, and there's also it also ties into a land acknowledgement piece that can either work alone or it can work together. But I think COVID is definitely like shaped the way not only we're presenting to each other now, and we're connecting to each other now, but it also is thinking that if anything like this happens again, or the likelihood of it, we want to figure out how to live together or exist in a space that we can feel like that is supporting us, but it's also it has some beauty to it, because we're all kind of sometimes stuck in our caves, like I am right now.
Yes, I'm in the museum cave, but yes. Yeah. Exactly. That brings up some good points of, now we have some sort of an idea of how to still try to connect and be together without being together. One of those kind of things that we've learned over the past year.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for Stephen? Want to know about?
If there's anything to you want me to expand on or go into more, I'm happy to do that.
Well, you've done an awesome job of, thank you so much, going through all of your work and sorry, Doreen. Yes, Doreen, go ahead.
Hey, Stephen, I have a question.
Hey, Doreen.
Hey, I really enjoy the Coyote works, and I see that he's painted a lot on the chairs. And I really like that you mentioned the Dwell and Architectural Digest as a kind
I saw you responding to that.
Yeah, because I enjoy looking at those too, and I enjoy decorating my home. But I was curious why the chair seems to be more of like his pause point. That the moment we get to glimpse into the moment of the Coyote.
I think the chair just became a place, as I was looking at those architectural magazines and those designs of furniture designs, things of that nature. There was something about when they're sitting or standing in the chair, it's kind of like a portrait, you know. So it leans toward, you know, portrait work, and I feel like the chairs themselves could embody a lot of the chairs in some of the earlier paintings. I can't remember, not this one so much. You know, I would, you know, decorate the chairs with certain designs. A lot of the interiors too, I would reference, or I would bring like Navajo weaving designs, or, you know, some indigenous designs that I think, and I imagine are also influencing, you know, artists and designers that they have over time.
Right.
So our line work, our beadwork, our weaving, you know, all that stuff sometimes is gets, I don't want to say fully appropriated, but it's inspired by, you know, often. But I think the chairs just became like a very straightforward way of like getting right to the point with coyote in chair, boom.
Well, it reminds me, I have, you know, cats, and they're, you know, animals aren't like, oh, it's furniture, I shouldn't be on it. They're just gonna, you know, explore space as it is. So it's very striking. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And there's one in particular that gets a lot of, like, of the Coyote and Chair series. This one here. Oh, am I still screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay, cool. This coyote with hot dog has gotten the most, I think the most interest in all of that work. And at the time that I painted it, I didn't even know what it was, like why I painted like, it's just so goofy. It was just the funniest thing I could think of at the time. And you know, this like really aggressive snarl. And I think initially I had the coyote was looking back at the viewer and like really, you know, like back off, you know, that kind of moment. And then I don't know, I put a hot dog in its mouth, and it seemed like there was a nice balance going on. And funny enough, so the Talking Stick Casino purchased this painting, the original one, and when they purchased it, I thought it was going to go into their collection or the gallery wall space, and I didn't really know what the casino layout was, but apparently it's ended up at the in the bar restaurant area, which is not bad. It makes sense. Coyote with hot dog. So, but I will get random emails and from people that are probably sitting at the bar, asking if they could purchase a copy or a print of this, or they can get they want a painting
Wonderful.
of this. So it's kind of funny that this one gets the most attention. I think it's just because it's where it's at, the exposure to this casino.
Well, I think for those of us that aren't always around coyotes, you know, the canine, there's a lot of dog lovers out there, and some of us might have seen a dog with a hot dog in its mouth. But yeah, it's wonderful. Thanks. I know there's other questions, so I'm just out now.
Okay.
Yeah, Stephen, we have a question from Gary. He wants to know, or they would like to know, how your Marine service affected your path going forward.
Sure. So I was in the Marine Corps in 1988 to 1992, and I was in 0351, and I was in 03. So anybody familiar with the Marine Corps, that's an infantry. 0311 is an infantryman, but I was a part of a weapons company, and I was based out of the West Coast. I was in 27, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Initially we were at Camp Pendleton, and then we ended up in 29 Palms of all places, which is the desert, the high desert. And I left Phoenix to go to this exotic, you know, experience in the Marine Corps, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna travel, and I ended up back in the desert. And then from the desert, it was just training to go to the Gulf, to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait during the Gulf War. And during that time, and my time in the Marine Corps, I actually was always drawing and, you know, doodling. And, you know, and whenever we were out in the field, you know, doing field exercises and training, I would always take a pad of paper and a pencil, and it was just to keep myself occupied. I have headphones for music or whatever. And so whenever I had downtime, I would sketch and draw. And funny enough, over in the Gulf, in Saudi, pornography was illegal, right? So these guys would ask me to draw nudies for them, no lie. So I had to learn how to. I kept, I had no real references, so I'm drawing, figures for the guys, and we're trading. It's like trading postcards or trading baseball cards. But yeah, so I initially started. I started drawing, for friends in the Marine Corps, and then I ended up drawing a horrible tattoo on the way back, and that I don't have, that like a whole platoon has, that I don't have because I knew it was bad. But no, it was kind of like all the elements of the Marine Corps, the task force, the whole experience that we were going through. But in terms of like how it shaped my career, my art, initially I think I mentioned healing and therapy. It really was, painting for me was a way to reimagine or paint things that I had experienced or seen or felt during my time in the service, away from the service. And it helped me, get a sense of balance again. And it really pushed me, I think, into, I started painting because I just felt I was so drawn to that experience, and I felt like I needed or had to do it. And a lot of it was because I was trying to go through or figure out, what I had just experienced. And then, so it kind of helped, it not only helped me in the form of healing or just, self-healing, but it helped me understand how I was translating what I was seeing in the world. For a long time, I wanted it to be exactly how it, it looked like in nature, but I realized that we all have our own view of the world and our own way of expressing it, and there's not really a wrong way to paint an image. Or for me, I just see it as like everybody can do it, and it's just how everyone has a different take on it. But yeah, no, it definitely pushed me, in some way it pushed me into becoming an artist. Maybe I was, but I didn't really realize it yet. Hopefully that was helpful. I can't imagine how stand-up comedians do this, because I've heard that so much of it is like you kind of feel the audience, and even when presenting, you can kind of sense the response to certain types of work and where you might want to go further. You can kind of sense what might be repelling. So
funny you should mention that. Funny you should mention that, because we have Tatanka Memes that will be doing a virtual comedy show in July. So
sweet.
We'll see how the virtual comedy plays out. Like you said, yeah, so much of it is feeding off of the audience, and yeah, so we'll see. I think there's one more question. I think Kyra was gonna ask that one.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you speak a bit about your multiple painting series, the landscape versus abstract form of them?
Oh, yeah. That for sure. Okay, so where is that? The abstractions. Oh, there is another one, another part of the abstract series that I want to show you. This is a different series. But so I did a bunch of these diptychs, and I wonder if I have them. Don't confuse nostalgia with a bad memory. So I was looking at landscapes that I had grown up in and from. So I also grew up in the Lake Powell area in Page, Arizona. It's up northern Arizona near the Utah border. So this place is called Lone Rock on the left. And it's a beach that I remember my dad actually crashed his boat around, but it's a, that bathtub ring, or we see it when the water levels go down in a lake. This is also the area that Southern Paiutes could have been or might have been in some time period. And so this abstraction on the right was basically a pattern from a basket that I took from a Southern Paiute design and tried to create a three-dimensional form from it. So it's very modernist in one regard, but it's very also a reference back to a tribal design that I was influenced by or inspired by, and that landscape too. So the idea too, we think about our national parks or lands, and the ideas around the amnesia of progress. So like as the West was expanded upon, we grew into the country, you grew and and the West was as our lands were dominated, and while colonialism was underway, this Lake Powell is actually a John Wesley Powell, who the lake was named after, who was one of the first white men to travel down the entire Colorado River, would have not liked the lake named after him, having read about John Wesley Powell. But so this idea of like, oh, I remember this beach, it's so great, what a fun memory of playing in the water and all this. And then but then I have to rethink the actual, what was the history of this land? What was the history of this place? So this is, a series that was, that kind of touched on things like that. But to the other one that I think that you're asking about, these landform abstractions. So I started, this one might have been, so Black Mountain, I think might have been their first one. I was referencing areas in the Navajo reservation that I grew up in and that I remember hiking in, and also up in the Page area and the Vermilion Cliffs. There's a lot of, the color of the rock is really red. And so I was doing, I started thinking about the process of how these landforms came to be. There's certain stories that I'll always kind of feel tied to with my Navajo background and my Laguna background, that about these places in the land. But then there's also the ideas of geologic process and time and how these things were formed. And so the process of painting these was, kind of playing with that idea of the geologic process, the process of painting, the layering, and the transformations that happen with layers and constant changing in the painting. So I would just push the paint around, layer it, I would make a lot of intentional mistakes to try to come back and fix, to give myself problems. Essentially these paintings were like what painting is in a lot of ways, which is problem solving. Oh, I see your cat, Doreen. That's awesome.
They always do that. Walk on the table. Yep.
So this is just, so these are just that. Like this one is called Glacier's Pace. I'm imagining this rock being taken over by ice, or maybe it was formed because of ice and melt. But yeah, this is actually the first one I did. This was Mountain. Black Mountain was the first. This is actually the first one I did from that series. But this is an ongoing one too. I haven't done it in a couple of years, but I have one actually in the studio back here, which is this painting here, Big, Slow, Beautiful. So this is the painting that's on the wall behind me. And this is a really good example of that series. But you can kind of just see how the paints, how, the layers work. And, it's not a very specific, the titles give it a location, or maybe give it a suggestion of where it might be. But they're also just memories of the land that I, the contours and the textures of the places that I remember as a child.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for showing us all of the abstractions there, and hopefully I think that probably answered the question for Paige there.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, here
I
are the
just,
other ones.
oh yeah,
So these are just I took a flat pattern like a Navajo rug pattern, and then just built 3D forms from them. So again, this is another one of layers. These blue ones are all on wood, painted over and then sanded to reveal some of the images, just kind of subtly revealing form. Oh, the urban series, another series. This was all in acrylic, different than the other ones that were in oil or oil or acrylic and oil. And so the paint moves very differently in these. I had a smooth surface to work from. But yeah, let me see. This might be. Oh, this is part of that series, the diptychs, landform, maternal. This is a reimagined eye dazzler rug, and then this is the region where I got a rug from one of my aunts. This is what it looked like on that, and these also kind of remind me of old photographs. This almost although they're red or it's brown or it's but it's that kind of that tone or the quality in that. And all of this was, so the panel on the right you're seeing is painted in oil. The panel on the left is acrylic, but the one on the right is done completely in a negative way. So I paint the whole painting red, solid red, and then I pull away all the paint to show the light areas. So to pull the sky, pull the background, and then I use a really soft brush to kind of make it look like it's maybe a photograph or something like that.
yeah, that's cool. Very cool. Well, I thank everyone for attending today, and thank you for sticking with us for the technical issues that we had at the beginning. I appreciate that so much. We do have a full lineup of programs around laughter and resilience that actually is open today. So if you're interested in coming down to the museum today, it is open. It officially opens tomorrow, but it is open a little bit early today. We do have a comic book workshop we're doing in July. There are more artist talks with other artists who have works in the exhibit. I mentioned the Tatanka Means comedy show that will be coming up in July. And then we have an in-person performance with Superman on August 7th to kind of close out the exhibit. We're all super excited about that. Please go to our website to register for all of the fun opportunities. The exhibit runs from May 22nd through August 8th. So we really hope that we see all of you here in one way, shape, or form. And thank you again, Stephen, for being so patient.
Yeah, you bet. It's good to see everybody.
Going through, yes. We look forward to having you here later this year and being a fellow. Also, you'll see more of Stephen's work in the fellowship exhibit that's coming up this November. So also stay tuned to our website for that. I can put our website in the chat. Kyra, can you put our website in the chat, please? So then everybody knows where to go. That'll be kept it for that. So sorry, Doreen, did you wanted to say something? I mean, Reese or Macbeth wanted to say something. That was
Macbeth. Sorry. Thank you. But hey, Stephen, I did want to ask about the Big Slow Beautiful that you showed us.
Yeah.
Is that one spoken for?
No, that one I actually the reason it's back here is because I was trying to pull out some things from storage.
Yeah.
From the archive and get them on. These have been rolled, in reverse to keep them, and then I had glassine over them. So it is available, and I'm hoping that might be part of the fellowship.
I think so.
Show.
Yeah. Jennifer is still out sick, but we're hoping that within a month or two she'll be able to come back. But in the meantime, as you know, Elisa, Elias, and I are helping on that.
So. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I know my heart goes out to her and best wishes on that.
Thank you. Have a good day and a good
Yeah,
weekend.
thank you.
Nice meeting you.
If you will stay on, Stephen, for just a
Yeah.
second, and I will let everybody else go. Thank
The
you.
next,
again,
we have another
everyone.
lecture.
We do, just right after this one. So.